Hello, and welcome to our webcast. I'm Amy Pendergrass with Moss Adams, and I'm going to get us started for today's session, 2022 Retail Outlook. Before we begin, I'm going to play a brief housekeeping video.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us. We're pleased to present another in our ongoing series of continuing professional education webcasts to help companies and individuals conquer challenges as they plan for what's next. Our presentation will start in a few moments. Before we begin, here are a few things to keep in mind. You can customize how you both view our presentation and interact with the presenter. For better viewing, close all other applications and turn up your speaker volume. You can also adjust window size and placement or enter full screen mode using the controls at the top of the window or dragging the bottom right-hand corner to resize. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of icons, each relating to a different aspect of our session. You can download the group attendance sheet and a PDF copy of today's slides from the slide deck and handouts widget to the right of the slide view. You can ask our presenter questions during the webcast by typing a question in the Q&A window below the slide view and clicking Submit. We'll do our best to answer all questions during the presentation or follow up via email. If you experience technical difficulty during today's presentation, refresh your browser by hitting the F5 key. Today's session will offer you 1 CPE credit. To receive credit, you must meet the requirements as specified by the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy. You must attend at least 50 minutes of the session and respond to at least 75% of the polling questions, which we'll ask throughout today's presentation. To respond to a poll, click the button next to your answer. We'll track your progress and alert you when you've earned CPE credit. You can then click the certificate icon in the CPE Progress widget to open a PDF file that you can save to your computer. Don't worry if you can't download your PDF certificate today. We'll email a copy to you in 2 weeks. If you're attending this webcast in a group, you must complete our attendance sheet to receive CPE credit. The attendance sheet is available in the slide deck and handouts widget. Please have all group members sign it and send only 1 sheet per group. Also note that CPE credit can be awarded only to participants registered as themselves and isn't available to participants who view the on-demand version. As a reminder, the presentation you're about to see isn't legal, investment, or accounting advice. We encourage you to seek the counsel of a professional service provider to apply this content to your specific circumstances.
All right, and now I would like to introduce today's presenters. Frank Kaufman, partner and our retail and e-commerce national practice leader. Sharon Gregory, a partner here at Moss Adams. And then we also have Francis Tam and Matthew McKittrick, both partners here at Moss Adams as well. Their bios and contact information are located in your console if you would like more information. And now I would like to turn the floor over to Frank to get the presentation started. Frank?
Well, thank you, Amy. Great to have all of you on. It's exciting. When we look through the list, I see people that have joined us for many years on our annual Retail Outlook, as we're having today, as well as, we've had an e-commerce series of webcasts throughout, starting last summer. So a lot of familiar faces. I think we have close to 500 people on today. So pretty exciting that you give us some of your time. Time is the most precious commodity right now. And we're hopeful that we're going to bring you some thought leadership. The idea here is to help you with any current challenges, as well as lay out with some lead time for you, things that are coming down the pipeline that are going to be very important to you. You can see the topics that we're covering today, and they're not the only ones. There's just ones that we thought would be probably applied to most of you. And with that, we're going to jump right in and talk a little bit about some numbers. I'm a numbers guy, so I have to do this. But some things are pretty staggering here. And if you take a look at what you've got on the screen here, you think retail, and you think in terms of GDP, not just what's sold, but the payroll that goes in, the rent that goes in, and what fuels the economy. And literally 1 out of 4 Americans is tied to the retail industry in some way. So huge impact. You can see e-commerce continuing to grow. That's not a shock, but what is interesting here is that you're talking about in 4 years, another 50% growth, actually just a tad more than that in the e-commerce space. And you can see that being reflected. We chose to put up the most recent issued numbers by the 5 big retailers that we all come in contact with. And you can see volume, you can see growth numbers. And I don't know if there's any surprises in there, but once again, Amazon is leading the pace. And so actually, Moss Adams is going to be rolling out some things to help with companies dealing with Amazon. And that'll be a subject of a webcast we'll do in May. But until then, just want to give you sort of a level set as to where things are. Some of the interesting things that came out of holiday, huge surge. And I look at this as sort of an encouraging thing about our situation in life. You see that apparel is up almost 50%. We are doing a webcast here at Zoom. It's easy to reach hundreds of you this way. But the reality is we're starting to get out of our houses more. We're not tied necessarily to the home office. We're going and interacting. That's all great. However, people are getting more and more and more used to obviously buying from some digital means, and you can see staggering numbers there as well. Oops, sorry, went a little too fast. Let's make sure I've got it. Okay. Pardon me on the heavy fingers. If you look at this top line number, I think it's such a telling story. First of all, offline retail, okay? We used to call this bricks and mortar, right? Or we used to just call it retail, and e-com was something sort of that's not retail. Now, even in my title, I have to call out e-com and retail because different people think of it differently. So one of the terms you're hearing is offline, okay, which is almost, just a whole switch in mentality. But the number that's being projected out, I think it was for 2025, if I'm not mistaken, is offline is going to be 72%. So therefore, the digital world is going to be 28%. And I can tell you, I went back in our stats, and we predicted something between 20 and 25% about 10 years ago, going to 2025. So that was an aggressive prediction at that time, but the more current updates are that it's even happening more than that. So it's not a decision point. You have to have an omni-channel experience or be pure digital if you want to ride the tide that's coming. We're going to talk a little bit more in a full section on the Metaverse and NFTs. I would liken that to the conversation we had 10 years ago about e-commerce and where it's going. Yeah, a lot of people, when I mentioned this, are like, that's hocus pocus or whatever. I'm going to put together an argument a little later that will maybe compel you to think a little more seriously if you haven't already. Clearly, supply chain, major challenges there. We can talk in depth about that. And another topic that we're going to delve into is a labor shortage. It's challenging for all of us. We're coming up with creative ways of bridging that gap. So with that, Amy, if you can, I don't know if we can launch this, so open the poll so that we can find out, it's kind of a cross-section, what are people thinking about?
Yeah, so the poll is up. In order to respond, you're going to need to click the buttons next to the answer you choose and hit submit. You can choose more than one answer for this polling question. And if you can't see the submit button, you just need to enlarge your slide area.
While everybody's answering, I'll just add another comment. As you looked at the stats, what I probably most encouraged by is retail is alive, well, thriving, growing. some of those numbers are not just great numbers for last year, but great numbers if you go back decades. So very, very positive direction. Sharon, you want to take a look at this, maybe make some comments on the results?
Yeah, thanks, Frank. So as I suspected, we were going to be pretty spread across the board. Obviously, digital and e-com seems to be coming out as the winner, which I think bodes well with what Frank just reviewed. But overall, I think, all of these different topics we're going to hit on in our conversation today. So looking forward to hitting on these as we move throughout the rest of the presentation. So at this point, I want to switch over to talking about the customer or the consumer and keeping pace with the consumer. We're seeing consumers continue to have high expectations of their shopping experience, both in-store and online. That personalization and convenience, I would say, are probably key, as they want products and curated goods that really speak to their needs. The customer is expecting this experience to be a blend of both digital and in-store shopping. I would say, additionally, the pandemic has sped up the trend of consumer engagement with digital platforms among all age groups, especially with that older age group, which is a significant change from pre-pandemic, but it's something that I believe will be continuing with that age group even as we come out of the pandemic. So from ordering goods online, picking up curbside or using contactless or self-checkout, customers are really looking for that speed and convenience that can be provided through all those digital means. This creates challenges for retailers as the customer experience needs to look and feel seamless, and it needs to be really easy for the customer to interact between their various devices, apps, and that in-store shopping experience. I would say retailers and brands are really following their customer lead by continuing to invest in digital and coming up with innovative ways to deliver that personalized experience both in-store and via online. So somewhat building on that concept of convenience. So, Frank touched on this a little bit. The world is starting to come out of the pandemic, but it's definitely taking on kind of a hybrid model of remote and in-person. Customers are really looking to brands to provide that holistic experience that gives them options for their needs. So when you think about it, they want that in-person gym experience and the subscription to a fitness app in case they want to work out at home. They're demanding choices. For groceries, they have options to purchase in-store, online, and you think about this with the concept of Amazon. You've got Amazon Go, you've got Amazon Fresh, you have Whole Foods. Additionally, Disney Plus comes into play where you're able to stream newly released movies for in-home, but you also have the ability to watch new movies from Disney in the theater. So the consumer wants a network of retail and services at their fingertips, which really kind of speaks to whatever their immediate need is. On this slide, we have a few examples. Lowe's, REI, and Kohl's are all kind of acting on this sentiment by partnering with brands to provide the customer a one-stop shopping experience. I find the Kohl's lifestyle concept to be really interesting, where the customer can not only return Amazon purchases in store, but they can also shop for products sold exclusively from Sephora, Eddie Bauer, and Tommy Hilfiger. What this really does is it provides speed and convenience to the customer and the ability for them to do kind of that one-stop shopping in one spot. So all of these partnerships and concepts kind of support that 15-minute neighborhood model that we're starting to hear more and more about, where the consumer can access all of its basic daily needs within a short walk from home versus, historically driving into more of your big metropolitan areas for shopping experiences. So we're also seeing the amplification of the consumer choice and voice. So some trends is the demand for products to listen to their customers. According to the National Retail Foundation, 40% of consumers chose a brand that aligns with their values. So what does this mean? It means the consumers are looking for brands that tell a good story and make them feel good. They really want that emotional connection. This is getting easier and easier for the consumer, through the unlimited access to data via either social media or online. Customers continue to have more visibility into pricing, quality, and company information, and are more willing to try new brands that align with those beliefs. So in order to maintain customer loyalty, brands really need to understand their target customer values, share these similar values, and ultimately keep those promises on their commitments to those values. Brands that have successfully connected with their customers have focused on this personalization concept. So they found a way to make their shoppers feel unique and emotionally connected. The shoppers really expect that personalized product offering rather than to be flooded with the slew of products when they're shopping online or entering into a store. So this is supported by the fact that 74% of customers feel frustrated when website content isn't personalized, and they're really looking to retailers to help them make the decisions in the way that they live, shop, and eat. So in other words, they want their favorite brands and websites to know them as well as they know the brands. So I would say the key to this personalization concept is collecting and leveraging data, which is what retailers are really starting to think through. So the best brands out there are finding ways to gather data, both online and at the store level, and use it to kind of further personalize their offering. So a lot of times the use of IA and other technology is helping retailers deliver that unique experience to every shopper that ultimately will lead to greater engagement and higher conversion. So a few examples of this is Gatorade. They've introduced what they call the sweat patch. This sticks to the athlete's inner forearm. It analyzes the athlete's sweat rate and makes recommendations on hydration. Stitch Fix used the opportunity to leverage technology by matching human curated IA or human curation with IA. You know, this solved the issue of buying apparel online, but the consumer not being able to try it on. And lastly, Best Buy is offering free kind of in-home consultations on TV selection for any given space and budget to its consumer. Which kind of leads into the next topic of the future of physical stores. I think that physical stores is also a way to really build on this personalization concept with stores, which retailers we're starting to see that trend with retailers. You know, these physical retailers are looking for ways to continue to reinvent. You know, they're focusing on innovation and technology for that in-store shopping experience to bring the shopper in. You know, the consumer does continue to want that social experience of in-person shopping. It's product discovery, it's interaction with the product, along with that customer service support aspect. You know, it's the thought process that selling the experience and connection is just as important as selling the product, which is really hard to do via an online transaction. So we've seen these concepts come into play with both traditional stores as well as e-commerce brands. I already touched on previously that cross-brand collaboration. You're seeing Macy's and Toys R Us, Target and Ulta, Kohl's and Sephora, you know, providing opportunities for multiple brands to be under one roof where the customer can conveniently interact with different brands. Additionally, the idea of these small concept stores where traditional retailers like Macy's and Bloomingdale's are focused on that smaller boutique type feel, you know, setting up these small concept stores that carry rotating goods of curated products and items. This allows more connection with the consumer rather than offering a multiple of options for the kind of bombard the customer when they walk into the store. And lastly, which I find really interesting, historically digitally native brands are migrating toward that physical presence. So Wayfair is planning to open up 3 stores in the near future. This is a significant change for a company that was founded 100% online and has primarily operated 100% online for its existence. But I think overall, retailers are focusing on how they can use that physical presence as an advantage to interact with their customer and really build that lasting client relationship or consumer relationship. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy for our second polling question.
All right, thank you. So our second polling question, what fulfillment options do you offer customers? And you can choose more than one. A, BOPIS, B, curbside pickup, C, home delivery, D, free delivery, E, curbside returns, F, all of the above, or G, none of the above. And as a reminder, if you would like to receive CPE for today's webcast, you will need to respond to at least 3 of the 4 polling questions that we pull up. I'm going to leave this up for another 5 seconds here. Okay, here are the results.
Great, thank you, Amy. As I suspected, we are seeing a little bit of trend, all across the board here, but definitely home delivery and some of those other options kind of speaking to that concept of customer convenience. Frank, anything else to add before we dive into Metaverse?
Yeah, well, I'm very excited to talk about the Metaverse, but before we go there, I'm actually a little surprised on the largest line on here is none of the above. So I guess I would challenge those of you to find a way to participate, right? If you reach out to any of your service providers that can help you in that area, obviously we can as well. But the clear message is the consumer wants things where they want them, when they want them. Ultimate convenience, as I said at the outset, thank you for spending time with us. Time is the most precious commodity. Customers want this. It's gone to like the buy online, pick up in store, for example. That's probably the most interesting area of opportunity from a standpoint. If you can get customers to go and order and then show up in your store, the stats show that generally speaking, if that customer goes in the store, you're going to convert probably about 40% of them to buying an additional item. So while curbside pickup and home delivery and all the delivery options are great, that's one I think is the most, as far as revenue generating, a big opportunity. So if you're in the I'll call it line G here, I would challenge you to try to move yourself up, sort of vertically towards the top of this to help with your revenue. But thank you for your input. So, as I said, the Metaverse, NFTs. Okay, so the challenge I have with talking about this is we're all at different stages of understanding. So some of this is going to be very basic for some of you, but I think it's good that we have a good groundwork. So first of all, you hear the term Metaverse. What is it, right? And for those of us who have kids, we might know Fortnite, we might know Roblox better than we know Metaverse. So think of it as multiple worlds, right? That you can join a community, be part of something. It's not just it's not like the internet. There's one internet. No, there's a bunch of different worlds that you can participate in, all in the digital space. If I had time to play the movie Ready Player One, I might do that. But if you haven't seen that, go back a ways, because that was pretty futuristic. But some of the stuff that they have in there is really what's happening today. So, as I said, I didn't explain NFTs, right? Non-Fungible Tokens. It's somehow to make something exclusive. So as retailers, we all understand exclusivity drives sales. And so the NFTs are something that you can have a digital version of something and you own it. And so that technology has led to a boom. Also, where this is playing out, apologize to everybody on the speaking platform today, but we are not Gen Zers, okay? So we have to learn, but the Gen Zers, which is one of the fastest and largest growing areas of disposable income, are into this space. As you can see, over half of the people in the age group we put on here are in there, okay? So if you're thinking about retail going forward, there's a consumer market that's huge that you need to pay attention to. So, some people have seen the Oculus headsets. but you can do this live on your phone. You can do it on a laptop. Get in, and again, I mentioned community earlier. If you talk to people about belonging or isolation during COVID, they want to have communities. This is a way for people to find a space to connect. Some people think it's a sad commentary. It doesn't have to be 100% of your time, obviously, but it is real in the virtual world. I don't even know if that's an oxymoron or not, but you can't ignore this, okay? The NFTs are important component because they allow commerce to happen, okay? So now let's talk about specific brands and what they're doing, right? First of all, one of the biggest issues we've focused in the last 12 months is supply chain. There is no supply chain delivery issue. You don't have to worry about boats stuck out in the harbor because you can deliver product that can be purchased digitally. And that can be what I'll say tangible product, or it could be digital product that's connected with an NFT that can be sold many times over.
Hi everyone, welcome to my adventure. Please meet my avatar, Adams. What you see here today is the central station for this metaverse, the Decentraland. Today, I will take you through my experience on jumping into a live event, which could be hosted by anyone. My avatar, Adam, was curious which event is available, so he looked through the bulletin board. We found this very cool box sport collection with almost 2,000 people in the live event. Let's jump in. Here is the main building, which is created by the host. Everyone is inside listening to what is in store today. Adam's looking a little empty, so let's buy him a wearable for today's event so we can join the party. Box Sport is selling skateboards for the event. There's only 9,000 left, so we should grab one quick. To buy the wearable on the Decentraland, I must convert my dollars into Mana, which is a cryptocurrency on the Polygon network. As you see, I am processing my transaction to buy this wearable. And if you're looking to host these events, maybe you can make some money too.
So there you go. I'm not sure if any of you have actually had that exposure. That's a very basic one in Decentraland. There are ones that are, graphically much more immersive, as if you're just looking straight out through your own eyes. But I thought it was a good beginning demo. Special shout out to Wei Zhu, who is one of our team members that put that together. He does fit into the demographics that I was mentioning before. And so if you need help developing, that's the first thing you should think about. Because as I mentioned, half the people in that age group are all about this. But what you now see on the slide are some brands that you should be very, very well aware of. All of these are, I don't know if you'll call it bleeding edge, leading edge, but have done some very significant things with respect to selling digital assets. These are not brand new digital companies that you're thinking about. Dolce & Gabbana, obviously, a long time, high-end brand. And what do you see there? What they did, and this is a common thread, is they're taking a physical product and they are marrying that physical product with a digital product. And so you can see 4 items, okay? 4 physical pieces of digital and 5, I guess I should say 5 real, if you will, tangible pieces, and 4 digital. And they went for $5.7 million. This is not inconsequential dollars. The amount of money that's being spent here is, I'll say so far, in generating less than $1 billion. So if you saw the billions and the trillion number that we launched this webcast with, it's its infant stage. Remember, I likened this to our discussions 10 years ago about where e-com was going. You got to pause for a minute, see the brands, see what they're doing, and think, okay, maybe I'm not the first to the party. I don't have to be the last to the party, but there's opportunity. So that's on the product side. Here's the interesting. I don't know. This one's harder for me to understand because in the product side you can literally buy, as Wei showed, you can buy a skateboard, you can buy a wearable item. You could also sell those. You could also set up your own mall and host events where you sell things. But that skateboard that he bought with an NFT, he can then resell that to somebody else. And so, it's sort of endless commerce that can happen. Now let's talk about real estate, okay? So you can see the major platforms. So $500 million in real estate sales occurred last year. All right, well, that's not nothing, but that's not anywhere near what the real estate market is. You look below that, first time in history, a mortgage was granted on a virtual property. I mean, I don't know. I bought my house. They're like, okay, we got to take, file a deed, and have your house as collateral. It's got to be no more than 80%. This is not something you can go visit except for in the metaverse. But there's a start. A lot of these numbers are small, but you're seeing starts happen. The next one, Republic, which is one of the big real estate developers, has already raised. At December it was 50. Now it's up to 75 million in a fund to go out and purchase real estate in the metaverse. And I don't know. Maybe it's virtual estate is maybe the new term. And if I just made that up, I want to trademark it. But it's maybe real to some. You can also see the projections for value. So there are people that are out there speculating on, all right, I'm just going to, flip. There's not much to doing a fixer-upper on a flip in the metaverse. One of the things that I found out yesterday, I was at another eTel conference, and this one sort of blew me away, but there are people out there trying, obviously, to grow the metaverse, and somebody was buying a piece of property, okay, and they were finding a way to finance it, and they found an organization that will pay you 2% of your loan to borrow money. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't know how negative interest works, but I think I want to borrow a lot. So those are the kinds of things that are going on. We will do a much more extensive webcast probably in the June timeframe on the metaverse specifically, but this was just a little bit of a flavor. So as far as key takeaways, it's think of it in terms of, well, you were bricks and mortar or you were a wholesaler and somehow you wanted to get into the e-com world. You started a website, you went to Amazon or whatever. This is another venue. Retailers want to bring people to a purchase point. Here, there is half of a generation is there, disposable dollars at a purchase point. You need to bring your stuff to them. They're already there. When you think of SEO and the dollars that you're spending to drive people to a platform, you can get on this platform for a lot cheaper. So I think that's one of the big opportunities as you drive your retail business. And then it's kind of fun just to be out there and play. I've had a good time being in there. You don't have to spend a single dollar if you don't want to see what's out there. So I would encourage all of you to delve into it a little deeper. So with that, part of the future is payments. So I think, Francis, this is you.
Thank you, Frank, for the intro. So I'll talk about future payments. So you heard a lot of good things from Frank and Sharon already. Our world has changed quite a bit. From the old days, the baby boomers and older folks, we always carry cash and maybe credit cards in the 70s, 80s. Now our world has changed quite a bit. So the one thing that you probably noticed, there are a lot of apps, payment apps that you can download these days. And you don't have to carry any more cash or even credit cards for that matter, because all of them are built into the apps so that you can make payments. And if the apps are using credit cards in the back end for clearing and settlement, you don't even have to have anything other than themselves. So one of the people that predicts what's going to happen in the future, right? In a wallet, in the old days you have a lot of things, cash, wallets, IDs and credit cards and whatnot. In the future, you only need a smartwatch, maybe one of the two. You can make payments, you cannot do IDs and everything in the same thing. So in the next 3 months, 3 and 5, well, I would say even sooner than that, and then particularly for the millennials, the Generation Z, the Generation Alpha, 0 to 12 years old, maybe in 10 years, this percentage could be even higher. They don't want to use any more cash. They don't want to use any credit cards at all, right? So the contactless payments are going to become more and more payments. So the lesson here is that, well, if you're not getting into this kind of bandwagon, you should look into it and see how you can sign up with or connectivity-wise with some of these contactless payment processors, right? And then another good number is stores that don't accept any contactless payments these days are going to have the risk of losing customers, because a lot of these millennials, Generation Z, Generation Alpha, they are going to be primarily just going to say, I'm only going to carry my smartphone, nothing else. I'm not going to carry my IDs. I'm not going to carry any credit cards. Everything should be done through my phone. That's how they work these days, right? 2/3 of the consumers expect physical stores to accept contactless payments. So it's almost like they walk in and say, do you take Google Pay? Do you take Samsung Pay? Do you take Apple Pay? Beep, and then they would just kind of use their smartphone to make that payment. If you don't have that, that may be a disadvantage for you. But then on the flip side is managing security is going to be a big concern for a lot of these businesses. Just in my world, cybersecurity world, if you make it very convenient for a group of people, in this case your clients, then you're going to open up a lot of doors for the bad guys as well. So you have to kind of take that into consideration. So one thing that I will also emphasize is a lot of these contactless payments these days, they're working with the credit cards for authentication, for clearing and settlement. In the future, there are a lot of these apps popping up. They're not only going to be working with credit cards. They could be working with some of these B2B, direct clearing and settlement, with cryptocurrency. That may not even appear in this data, right? So a lot of these different options, permutations are going to pop in the near future. Another thing that is really becoming more and more popular is growth of paying buy now and pay later. I'm not talking about financing a payment. Hey, if you don't pay now, we have to charge you 20% and whatnot. So a good example is Klarna, Google app. So if you look at some of these studies, right, between 2021 and 2028, 52% of the people aged 18 to 24, they're going to use this. This is so convenient for those folks, right? They are just going to buy it and think about the payments in the next 12 months in 4 installments. In this case, sometimes you can pick the number of payments and and interest-free, which is a good thing, right? They would think some of the credit cards, if you don't pay now, then you have to incur very, very high interest rates, but not anymore. So that's a very enticing option for some of the millennials, Generation Z folks. It's going to be mobile-friendly. You don't have to fill in any paperwork. You don't have to do a credit check. You don't have to do anything, because when you sign up, all these things are done in advance. And people with no and limited credit histories can buy now, pay later, and in a way to build up their credit history. So you can see that this is going to be a way that the consumers, some of these building their credit history and whatnot kind of thing. So this is a good app if you're interested in seeing this option, Klarna. It's, you sign up, very easy, you ask a bunch of questions, and then you buy something, you make 4 installment payments in the future. So, and then the thing is, I don't know if this is good or bad. This is a thing that is enticing a lot of folks to spend more money than what they have right now in the wallet. So this is making it easier for you folks to sell your goods, right? Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, because of all these good things happening to make the consumers, to make your clients buy things easier, making the consumer experience much easier, payments make a lot easier, right? It also opened up a lot of doors for the bad guys. So this is a very quick slide. I'm not going to go through every single box for you. But as you can imagine, from 2020 to 2021, all these frauds are going up, different categories, identity theft, imposter scams, imposing from, I don't know, for example, I'm a representative from Starbucks. I'm doing a survey. Can you read up your, I'm doing a survey. Can you tell me your history? Oh, by the way, can you tell me your CVV number in the back of your card so that I can do a search and all the stuff? And that way I get your card and CVV number, right? So that's going up and up. A lot of these numbers are probably understated, as you can imagine, because a lot of these things may not be reported, as people don't want to have any bad publicity, right? And then credit bureaus, info, and furnishers, and report users, these are the prime targets for a lot of bad guys. Why? Because they do have a lot of personally identifiable information. So this is a treasure trove, I call it, right? Why they want to go in. Once you get in, they get, 25 million people's credit card numbers, whatever, right? So this is where you need to watch out and make sure when you, at the same time you're making the consumer experience good, making it easy for payments, you also have to watch out for some of the layers of security that you need to consider. So some of the statistics, again, this is not very accurate anymore. Sometimes I always kind of add maybe 25% more to it. They are always underreported. Went from 29 to roughly about, almost close to 30-something billion. 70% of all the frauds begin with an email, telephone contact. This is a big business, as you can imagine. No cost of goods sold, just a lot of phone calls and spam emails. 1 in 4 people who report losing money in fraud say it happened when a scammer tricked them into giving their numbers on the back of the cards, right? This is very common. Impersonation, we call it phone phishing, spear phishing, right? Whaling, all kinds of things that you can do. And, email blast a lot of people and see what you can get in these replies. And then with the pandemic, again, there are a lot of scams and frauds are perpetrated because of people's, they want to work from home, they want to do shopping online, they want to do a lot of these things from home without, seeing some of the things that they may be potentially thinking they're buying, right? So this is a very big business for these folks, especially during this time when almost everybody's working from home or doing a lot of the shopping. I don't know what the percentage is. Probably Frank has that percentage. Is doing all the shopping online, right? And it's a big business. Now, going into technology, again, depending on whom you work with in terms of payment processor, in terms of payment technology, there are a lot of things you can consider in implementing. You don't have to do all of them, of course. You may want to do one or combination of these, right? So, for example, you definitely need the CVV, card verification value, address verification service that you can subscribe. If you're using a third party to do some of these verifications, they will charge you a fee, and they can kind of build it into the model. EMV chip, right? A lot of the credit cards these days, not all of them, have that chip in the card built in already, where they can do a tap, where they can do a contactless, without sliding, without inserting the card into the card reader. You can tap, and this EMV is close to impossible to duplicate. Whereas a magnetic stripe in the old days, it's easy to duplicate. It's very easy. You can go to a YouTube and you can learn it. That's how bad it is, right? The 3DS is a service provided by these credit cards, third-party 3D Secure, is an extra layer that you can build into some of these online transactions, verification, card verification service. You have to pay a fee, but it will be into an extra layer of authentication. Tokenization. If you happen to be an online e-commerce merchant, right, when you have a website, when you have a virtual terminal, you can basically do a one-way hash of all the credit cards immediately. If you're working with a payment processor, they can do a tokenization of the credit card number so that even if somebody breaches your environment, they no longer can see the 16 digits. It's almost like a code that you cannot decrypt, right? It's only the provider that has the key to decrypt it. Credential and file, hopefully you can use it, but this is not exactly a ideal way to do it. Store the credit card, credential and file so that you can do recurring transactions or representments or whatever. Velocity limits and metering. So some of the things you can build, again, to your website that you can limit of how many transactions people can submit in a limited amount of time. A lot of times the bad guys, they use automated robots, bots to submit transactions, to submit things to test your, credit card fraud detection system. But if you limit it, that will make them very hard to do something like that. Multi-factor authentication, again, you want to make sure that whoever access your server, whoever access your engine, whatever, it's not only a credential, user ID, and password, but they have other ways to authenticate the person. You are who you are. So those are the things that you can consider. One, multiple combination of these to make your environment a lot safer. With that, over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Francis. Hi, everybody. I'm going to talk quickly about our data-driven strategies, and there are two main areas here that I think are rapidly advancing. The first is in the area of management insight platforms with the emergence of powerful cloud data collection and storage tools and reporting tools, really amazing fast tracking of being able to pull from multiple sources and report consistently across a broad infrastructure, and I'll show you a little bit about that in a moment. There's also some things emerging around analytics process automation, really exciting technology that's helping eliminate the heavy pain of spreadsheet processing, especially monthly repeatable tasks. So that's an exciting area. And I'm definitely seeing a lot of these dashboard tool sets and data collection processes being able to more effectively enable strategic initiatives and track that through KPIs and driving it not just at the executive levels, but down to multiple roles within the firm, even at the rank and file levels. Quick point on the second area of rapid advancement. I think we all know this with AI everywhere. Predictive and prescriptive analytics are really coming online fast. Frank alluded to the technologies around leveraging your Amazon sales channel. Really amazing to see the kinds of technologies that are emerging here. I think about sales and marketing and being able to do dynamic pricing to optimize your process using AI tools and predicting and encouraging sales and helping someone who visited even a month later execute a sale through a discounting strategy. These things are really driving bottom line effectively. Also just want to highlight the fraudulent transactions and flagging. Certainly people are getting caught in fraud type detected tools. That creates a backlog. But there are ways to streamline the review and approval of transactions, make sure you're not having a negative customer impact when it gets flagged as a potential fraud. But there's also the fraud around illegitimate reviews, and so there's AI being used in that area as well. Pretty exciting stuff. I want to just highlight quickly about this management insights platform. We've talked about this on the e-commerce series a little bit, but we're highlighting again. You can see on the left side there's tons of sources that come through in any enterprise, and many of them are from the ERP systems, but you've got your e-commerce systems, multiple e-commerce systems perhaps. You also have manual files and processes. All of those can create silos of data. They create tons of operational challenges and sometimes governance data issues and missed opportunities for sure because it slows the processes down. When you move forward to a management insight platform that's more centralized, you end up being able to leverage the cloud ecosystems to capture these data files and import them and increase the visibility across the entire platform. So it's really powerful to see these tools coming online, especially the AWS stack and Microsoft stacks and Google stacks. Ultimately, it ends up in a dashboard system that allows for data-driven type analysis. It's visually enabled. It's automatically refreshed. It has drill-down ability to get to, say, an anomaly or an error And if you think about, even just a few years ago, you might have people spending days trying to understand a problem. With management insight platforms, these things can happen in moments, and you really don't even have to roll it up to the senior level, especially if you implement a strategic initiative around it where you're enabling KPIs and assigning them down the line to the individual people, not just at the senior levels. It can really be a game changer for a company. And then finally, I just want to highlight this manual files and process. It's the one-off that takes most of the time in many companies. And so I'm going to move to this next slide, which talks a lot about analytics process automation. One of the most exciting things I've seen over time because the ROI is incredible here. Typical use case is that there's some reconciliation that involves a staff member having to compare two different data sets to do a reconciliation and confirm completeness and accuracy. That's happened over and over again with spreadsheets. And while it's powerful, it is definitely not the best use of a staff level time, right? They're spending half of the time just getting the data, munging it, doing the reconciliations, and then spitting out the results. With tools like Alteryx, for instance, you may have heard of that tool. It's in this group of analytic process automation tools. These things can be streamlined, and what I've seen in my experience, I've never seen better client feedback, honestly, on an implementation using Alteryx in my recent experience, where something was taking a month for a tax reconciliation, it got streamlined down to about 12 minutes. It changed the game for about 3 people in the tax department. And then they constantly spun up other instances of this, and it's been a real big win for the company. So just something to think about. Analytics process automation will be here and emerging rapidly. With that, I think we're going to go to our next polling question.
All right, thank you. So our third polling question, how does your company leverage Amazon to sell products? A, sell directly on Amazon. B, fulfillment by Amazon. C, AWS user. D, all of the above. E, we don't interact with Amazon currently, but we would like to in the future. Or F, we don't interact with Amazon currently and don't intend to in the future. And as you're responding, I do want to let you know that once you've completed all CPE requirements, you will be able to download a PDF of your certificate from the CPE progress window. And we still have one more poll question to do before the end. Okay, here are the results.
Okay, well, there's an opportunity to interact with Amazon in the future. Frank, any thoughts?
Yeah, we have a lot of people that fall into that bucket. Half the people here say they don't intend to. Amazon has about 60% of the U.S. market share for all digital commerce. So I get the issues with respect to brands and concern there. As I alluded to, next month we'll have a webcast talking about how to work with Amazon. We'll be announcing another service that we provide that may change some of your minds and allow you to join in that opportunity.
Sharon, take it away with supply chain.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Okay, so we're going to shift gears a little bit now to discuss the hot topic of supply chain. I don't think there are really any industries out there today that haven't been impacted in some form or fashion by disruption in supply chain over the past year. Definitely the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has created quite a few challenges as it relates to all verticals. Unfortunately, most of us are still living through the pains of labor shortages, shipping disruption, and increase in pricing due to fuel and labor. So unfortunately, I don't think the supply chain crisis is ending any soon. There are also 2 additional factors that are going to impact the supply chain in the next 12 months, which includes the expiration of the longshoreman contract in July of 2022, which certainly could cause further disruption. And there's some new emission standards that are going to be effective in the beginning of 2023, which will reduce ocean liner emissions by 13%, ultimately leading to slower moving ships, which increases shipping time. So I think companies really need to address kind of the current and future disruption across all the supply chain and focus how they can kind of adapt and work through this disruption so it doesn't create significant issues going forward. Quick stat, according to McKinsey analysis, a sustained effort to prepare for your supply chain for the future can lead to increased sales margins and cash flows. Some of the keys to successfully navigating the future supply chain challenges, including leveraging data, increasing transparency, and really understanding that disruption and where it falls for retailers specifically in that supply chain process. So rethinking supplier mix, location, and geography, really in order to kind of build a more resilient supply chain. A lot of retailers are looking, and brands are looking at locations of distribution centers, so focusing on where their customer base is in order to conquer kind of those costs and challenges surrounding the last mile of the transportation of goods. Additionally, leveraging in-store workforce for distribution, customer pickup, and inventory management can ultimately help with delivering that product to the end user. Lastly, many brands are stocking up on inventory, which is a shift from that just-in-time model that we've heard so much about to take on a just-in-case approach. So as many brands were faced with raw material and finished goods shortages in 2021 and were not able to keep up with demand for their products, they've now focused on building up a reserve of inventory in order to meet those kind of unexpected demands for product. Focusing specifically on that last mile, managing and conquering that last mile fulfillment can be one of the most costly verticals of the supply chain. Consumers are increasingly demanding that same day or speedy delivery across so many products, and a study shows that 99% of retailers plan to offer these same day services by 2025. This is a significant challenge, obviously, as retailers are focused on meeting this customer expectation, but still trying to maintain that order visibility, on-time delivery, and control the cost once those products are ultimately transferred to the shipping phase of the order. Retailers and customers are also focused on sustainability, so this is also forcing retailers to look for ways to reduce their carbon footprint. 50% of retailers using electric vehicles in their fleets, and 1 in 3 in using bikes are some of the ways that they're managing through that process. Kind of to wrap it up on the supply chain side, we're seeing a lot of different examples of way to conquer that last mile through the use of technology. So FedEx piloting e-cargo bike delivery, Walmart collaborating with drones to do a test market in Arkansas to deliver to customers, Domino's, Kroger, and others using robotic electric vehicles. Some other ways companies are dealing with the challenges is rethinking inventory locations, shipping direct from stores versus from a warehouse or distribution center, or leveraging existing store inventory for customer pickup. This does require, obviously, a significant upfront investment from retailers, but I think the return on investment will ultimately lead to those lower fulfillment costs, maintaining control of their product to the end user, and ultimately meeting those consumer expectations. And I'll just touch briefly on the changing workforce just in the essence of time. Obviously, retailers are being faced with a changing workforce with the millennials coming into, basically becoming 75% of the global workforce. This group sees themselves as highly valuable and believe work-life balance is a priority. And so it's a challenge for retailers to look for ways to work with those individuals to give them what they want while also retaining their employees. I think what we're seeing a lot of retailers do is, invest in retention programs. So in order to grow their team members, they're creating paths that resonate with the workforce, including on-the-job training and growth opportunities, as well as some personal initiatives. So a few examples on this. I won't spend too much time going through those, as I definitely want to give Frank the opportunity to wrap up from here. And with that, we'll go into our last polling question before Frank wraps it up.
All right, so we'll do this one quickly. If you still need PPE, does your company have a business strategy around sustainability? Yes, no, or not sure?
And so I guess I should apologize for our zeal in sharing all information as as much as we would like in trying to cram it all into an hour. We're at the top of the hour. So as you're answering this, I'll just throw out some things on the sustainability slide that you'll see. Probably the most important thing is that from a consumer standpoint, not the most important thing from doing the right thing, because the sustainability idea, look, we got to take care of our planet. It's pretty basic, but we're also in the world of selling product. And so how do you balance that? Well, to understand a motivation, let's see, awesome. More than 2/3 of you have it. For those that don't get on it, what I was about to say is that 62% of consumers are now changing their purchase decision based on your company's stance on sustainability. You need to have that information out on your website. You need to be a good corporate citizen. And, if it isn't enough just to do that, okay, now you have the financial motivation to do it. The other point I wanted to make was from a full circle. There are companies out there, and I'll show them to you now, that are doing things at the end of the life cycle. So for example, Levi's has got a secondhand Levi program that they're trying to continually to use that product rather than put it in landfills. There's a lot of good examples that are out there. We can spend hours talking about it, but realize not only is it the right thing to do, it's also the right thing to help your business grow. So again, thank you everybody for joining. I think I'll turn it back to Amy now. There should be a survey on the wrap up.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Frank, Sharon, Matt, and Francis for a really great presentation today. And we are out of time. For those of you in the audience, we will email your certificate within 3 weeks should you have difficulty downloading it now from the CPE Progress window. And also, here's a link to an online survey for today's presentation. Please take a moment to complete this survey, as your feedback is very important to us. Thank you for joining our webcast. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.